All right, race fans, Ryan Aho here, and the one and only Bert Lehman. Bert, how the hell you doing, man?
I am doing better right now. On last week's show, I mentioned that, I've been one of my dogs hasn't been feeling good for the last few weeks, but she was on some new medication and was doing well. And then later that night, she took a turn for the worse and didn't make it through the night. So last week was pretty sad. It's still sad, but I'm getting accustomed to it, I guess. So it's one thing with dogs, you love them to death, but they have a short life. And Zoe, that was the dog. I mean, she was like 15 years old, so she lived a long, good life. So it's, something all dog owners have to deal with eventually. So, but things are getting better. I heard you went to a race banquet this past weekend.
I did. So I went to the Grand Rapids Speedway banquet. Before we get into that, of course, episode 117 brought to you by our friends over at Dirt Track Supply, Watertown, South Dakota. Get a hold of Trevor, get a hold of Ron. If you need parts, if you need tires when they come in, right? If you need stuff fixed, fabricated, you need a new chassis, the Aero chassis, get a hold of them guys. They've been servicing race drivers for years. I mean, Ron Anderson's a legend over in South Dakota. Trevor's becoming a very good racer in his own right, and I tell you what, they've been helping people for a long time. So get a hold of Dirt Track Supply. But yeah, I got to get over to the Grand Rapids Speedway banquet up in northern Minnesota. And Bert, the first thing I thought is, why the hell did I live in northern Minnesota so long? Unbelievably cold. It's still cold. I'm up here at my parents' right now. Horribly cold. I mean, tons of snow. Why on earth are we not in Florida or Arizona or whatever? Even the birds are smart enough to go south. Okay, I just don't get it. We got to smarten up a little bit. But congratulations to all the champions. Couple rumors. I hung around pretty much all night till about 1 a.m. Talk racing. We could talk racing all day, every day. But we've been kind of wondering, where's Ricky? Right? Where's Ricky Weiss? He got Florida Speed Weeks. He was over in Vado. Was it going to hurt him? What's the overall thoughts here? Is he really missing out? Well, let's just say that he wasn't just laying around on the couch eating Cheetos. Okay. From what I understand, they've been testing extensively and are kind of pretty optimistic. Remember, they got a little bit quicker right at the end of Vado. They were right battling for some top fives here. They were pretty solid, and they've been testing quite a bit. So we'll see how that things open up. I think he's starting maybe at Atomic or Smoky Mountain. I think maybe he's starting at, and he's going to follow the XR series pretty much extensively this year. So he said he wasn't going to follow the World of Outlaws series, but it looks like he is going to follow pretty much all of the XR series. So that'll be quite interesting. A little news there on Ricky Weiss. Another thing, Bert, 4 new late model teams up in northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota. So you have the runner-up from last year in the Super Stocks. You got Kevin Burdick. He's waiting on his car from MB. He's going to be a rookie in the late model division. Dave Flynn, from what I understand, is on his way this week or next week down to Rocket to pick up a new car. He won the Fastlane Super Stock Series last year. So that's 2 of the top Super Stock drivers in all of Wissota racing that have made the transition to late model racing. I'm sure they'll both do well. And then another name, if you're from the Twin Ports, Lillo. There's like 8 of them, right? There's all kinds of Lillos in the late model division. From what I understand, Aaron Lillo's son is also going to try his stint in a late model. And then Dean Mattel from up in northern Minnesota, he bought a used car. He's going to jump into the late model. So we're looking at this, Bert. A couple of years ago, we're talking late model racing is kind of dying a little bit, but now I think it's going to be one of the highest car counts for Hibbing, Grand Rapids, Superior. I think they're going to do pretty well. Pretty excited about that. And one thing I'm not excited about though, Bert, tires. Have you heard anything on your end of the world over there, eastern Wisconsin? Have you talked to anybody about the tire situation over there?
I haven't heard anything on this side of the state, but you read stories and you hear things that tires and parts are going to be tough to going to continue to be tough to come by this year. I mean, the fact that NASCAR teams are only taking one car to some races because they don't have enough parts to build a second car, that tells you how bad the situation is.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just tires, it's everything. And I was talking to a vendor, and from his understanding, is they're not even going to be able to get WISSOTA tires until they're hoping, knock on wood, right? Hoping April 1st. Well, racing starts that week. WISSOTA racing starts that week. So now, number one is, are they going to get tires? Number two, how many are they going to get? Right? Number three, are the drivers going to actually have enough tires to be able to go race? I don't know this, right? I don't know the answer to them questions. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully everything works out. But I got a question, right? So I watched a couple weeks back. They had, I think it was the Working Man Nationals, I think they called it, over in Las Vegas, Barry Braun XR Series. They put kind of a 3-night, I think it was 3 nights. They had modifieds, sport mods, and street stocks. Now, what they did, though, Bert, is they basically opened up the rules. They said if you have a USRA rules car, you're going to run American Racers, you're going to run your tires for your class. If you're IMCA, you're going to run your tires. If you're WISSOTA, you're going to run your tires. So they opened it up, and I don't know if there was any other rule changes. I didn't really look that closely, but I do know the tire situation. They basically said, hey, we're going to open it up. Whatever sanctioning body you run in, we're going to make it work. Come race with us. And I'll be honest, it was pretty competitive. There's only a couple mod guys there, but the Midwest mods, it was IMCA guy. There was an IMCA guy that won, a WISSOTA guy that won, street stocks, IMCA and WISSOTA. I think there was an IMCA in the sport mods, maybe USRA, I'm not sure. But let's just say it was multiple sanctions. Is that something you think that the WISSOTA sanctioning body might have to look at for the 2022 season? If tires become a problem, are they going to have to open it up and say, look, bring whatever you got for tires, you run them, we'll make it work? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if drivers are unable to get tires, they're going to have to change the rules in some way to allow other tires to be used. You want to keep the playing field level, obviously. So, they'll have to look at that. But if you want cars racing, they need tires. And if they can't get WISSOTA tires, you're going to have to allow something else so they can race.
Well, from what I understand, and another driver or whatever, if you've run multiple different, tires, post in the comments. But I know for sure the WISSOTA Hoosier is far superior to the IMCA Hoosier. It ain't even
right.
Close. Okay, it ain't even close. So WISSOTA should be looking at that and saying, look, we got some IMCA guys in, the Brainerd area, over by Fargo, Jamestown. If they want to run them tires, let them run them tires. They're at a disadvantage. If they want to come race, let them race. It's not like they're coming to steal money from somebody. The American Racers, it kind of depends who you talk to. I was told, and I don't know this for sure, that they have better forward traction with the American Racers, but because of the sidewall construction, they have less side bite. And I was told the WISSOTA Hoosiers steer better, but they might have overall more forward drive with the American Racers. I don't know that to be 100% true. I haven't ran them, but you take a look at Wisconsin, Bert. You got Cedar Lake, and you have Mississippi Thunder, which, no disrespect to any of the other tracks over there in that area, but those are the two tracks. They're the two. That's the premier Friday track, the premier Saturday track. It just is what it is. They used to be WISSOTA. Unfortunately, they're not. They went a different direction. But there's drivers that like to race both places. I've seen drivers race at Mississippi Thunder that are WISSOTA guys. I've seen, and vice versa. Would it be advantageous to say, look, instead of not having cars, if some of them guys, Cedar Lake rains out, they want to come to Rice Lake, hey, come on, bring your stuff, come on and play. I think I really like what XR has done as far as saying, we're going to bring all these sanctioning bodies together, and we're going to make it so that all the mods can run. Because I think his vision, and I have not spoke with Barry. I'd like to maybe get him on the show if we can and ask him this very question. But from what I see, Bert, his vision appears to be one unified set of rules in classes that are able to race all over the country, right? You look at modifieds, you got UMP, USMTS, USRA, IMCA, WISSOTA. You got all these different sanctioning bodies, all different rules packages. It's ridiculous. Could this be the start to a unified set of rules in the years to come for some of these classes? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I guess it could be a start. I mean, the type of tire that you use to race on, in some instances, can have a bigger impact on whether you win or lose than even a motor. I mean, this happened back in the 1990s, so I'm not sure how the tires have changed since then. But Shawna Speedway actually held a special where they invited WISSOTA modified drivers to come race against the IMCA modified drivers at Shawna Speedway. And actually, Jerry Weigel, he won the feature that night, and Eddie Munster, who was a Shawna regular, was second. And I interviewed Eddie Munster that night, and he said, I didn't get outmotored, I got out-tired, because the WISSOTA drivers had to use their tires, IMCA drivers had to use their tires, and the WISSOTA tires were superior to the IMCA tires. And Eddie Munster said that's what cost him the win was, he had inferior tires.
So here's the solution to this whole deal. Get one set of tires, just unify the dang rules already, right? At the end of the day, we've been talking about this with late models. You look over at South Dakota, Huron, South Dakota, Dakota State Fair Speedway, Orv has been a big WISSOTA guy forever. Whatever happened, all of his shows, there's no challenge series they're having Tri-State. Tri-State has that going on, kind of like the Dirt Kings, where if you have an open motor, a crate, a spec motor, they'll kind of make something work. I tell you what, it's time to make that happen. If I was in a position as far as rules go, I'd be trying to talk to Brett Root, Todd Staley, Driggers, all these different guys, and saying, look, we got to make some changes here. Let's get on the same page, because we can't operate out of fear, right? I know for far too long WISSOTA operated out of fear, going, man, if we're on the same rules as USRA, we're going to lose cars. They got to start looking at it as, no, if we're on the same rules as USRA or IMCA, we could gain cars, right? Instead of looking at it the other way around. So I kind of like what Barry's got going on there. Pretty interested to see how that moves forward. But what do you say we get into a blast to the past brought to you by Brad Parson? Now, farmers, okay? This is the time of year, farmers probably already kind of getting to that point where you need to kind of have your ducks in a row. We're already into February. So get a hold of Brad. He does soil health and fertilizer efficiency. He can help you save money and increase yields. Over a 15-year track record in the Dakotas and Minnesota. And I tell you what, he's a racer. If you're listening to this, you're a race fan. Get a hold of him, because if you're not using his products to better yours, somebody in your area probably is. So get a hold of Brad Parson. But Bert, episode number 117. Do you have any 117s?
Actually, I just thought of one. It's actually an ice racer.
Nice.
Raced at on Shawna Lake back when I covered the Fire on Ice Racing Club. Ward Peterson Sr., he was number 117. So that one just popped into my mind. That's the only 117 I have.
Nice. So I got three 117s. The first one I have is Mark Tremberg, fan of the show, been involved with racing, used to build turbine chassis. He ran I think it was called a mini stock back then, front wheel drive, or I think it was front wheel drive, maybe rear wheel drive. I don't even know. I should know this. Some car guy I am, but he ran a Pinto, needless to say. And he was 117 until the promoter at the Grand Rapids Speedway at the time said, we don't allow 3-digit numbers. So he had to change to number 11, but he was number 117. And then I have Todd Kittner. Now, his son, Tyler Kittner, won a pile of features. He was a champion at the Grand Rapids Speedway. Got to honor him this weekend. But Todd actually was running a hobby stock / thunder car. Kelly Esty. This is a story I got. So, Kelly, if you're watching this, you're going to have to correct us if we're wrong here. But Kelly was running for track points, and I don't know if he wrecked his car, blew his engine, but he borrowed the car from Todd. Todd ran the car, or he ran the car then most of the rest of the end of the season until right at the very end, he gave the car back with a blown motor is what I was told. So he blew up the motor, then gave the car back. All right. So Kelly, come on, you're killing me. So he gives the car back, and they kind of blacked it out, I think. And he came out with the 117. Typically he was 22. I had no idea. I never heard that story. I got it from Lem there. He got it over to me. So Todd Kittner, and then a couple of years back, the Hibbing Raceway brought the mini stocks in, or I guess it would be the Wissota Hornets. And a guy, honestly, I don't know where this guy's from, Snert Thundercloud came in. And really, he had the Hams car pretty much dominated in the Hornet division and fan favorite. He had shirts, and I remember I was doing the Victory Lane interviews at the Labor Day shootout, and I could literally hear them across the track going, na, 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 Thunder. And they were like chanting it and all that. And I might know a little bit more on who that is, but Snert Thundercloud is a guy that needs to come back racing because it created some electricity in the class. It created a following, really a cool thing. And Bert, the story there is Lem actually kind of brought on that persona. And I tell you what, it was probably one of the biggest marketing things that they had going at the Hibbing Raceway for the year. I mean, it was super cool. The kids, the fans, everybody loved it. We need to do a lot more of that kind of stuff. Now, let's get into number 17, okay? And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I got a few of them here, okay? But when I think 17, there is one person that comes to mind. And I'm going to late model guy, ran at the Cedar Lake Speedway. This guy here, he also ran, incidentally, a number 21. I guess it would have been the hobby stock / super stock division, modifieds, wing modifieds. But he won Labor Day shootouts in 86, 91, 93, 95, 98, and 02. And I tell you what, one of the most dominant, feared late model drivers in our region for a long time. Can you guess it?
Yes, Rick Eggersdorf.
He is the man. I tell you what, this is one of the guys. Do you have any Rick Eggersdorf stories? I got a couple good Rick Eggersdorf story, and I would love to interview him at some time to confirm one of these. But anything stick out to you? That guy, I tell you what, he was unbelievably fast, especially at Cedar Lake, but everywhere, really.
I don't have any stories. He finished second at the first ever Punky Manor that I attended. MJ McBride finished third, I believe, and then Eggersdorf was second, and Krasinski was first. But a little bit of trivia, Rick Eggersdorf won a World of Outlaws feature at Shawna Speedway in 1989.
Really?
Yes.
I had no idea. Interesting. I tell you what, that guy could flat out wheel a car. Now, folklore says, here's a couple of stories. Folklore says that they used to get to the Cedar Lake Speedway early, right? And they used to have a bag with, I believe, ping pong balls in it that had numbers on it. And then you just reach in, you grab the ping pong ball, and there's your number, and that's what you drew. Folklore says that he may or may not, his pit crew or car owners or whoever it was at the time, brought their own ball, reached in the bag with a ball in their hand, brought it out. They said, here you go. And they said, yeah, no, I don't think so. Grab another one. And they either painted the balls or changed them different color or whatever. And they got caught. So that was kind of an interesting story. Another story I have on, and I'm going to have to confirm this, but this is folklore right here. Labor Day shootout. So the Hibbing Raceway, they got 3 sections of grandstands, and in the center section, they got a huge stage in the front where they, as a kid, we used to go to an intermission, run around with the other kids. They've done different stuff. That's where they do the redraw for specials and stuff like that. But underneath it, there was a doorway. And the folklore says he was leading the Labor Day shootout along with caution after the red came out. He called over Don Hank. He says, Don, I got to take a piss. Got out of his car, ran underneath the stage, took a leak, came back out, got in his car, wins the Labor Day shootout. And I'm like, really? So I believe that to be true. But my favorite race with him is I started 12th over at the Cedar Lake Speedway, 2003 Tony Stewart night at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Now, did you go to that?
No, I didn't go to it.
So Stewart started 14th, 15th, and coming down, I guess, right to the end. Well, first of all, with like 3 laps to go, I think it was 3 laps to go or 2 laps to go, I was side by side with Stewart. We were running, I believe, 4th and 5th at the time. Mike Hessling crossed it up, and Stewart crossed it up. I got into Stewart. Stewart's done. I got my spot back. Hessling to the back, which he was lapped. And Stewart's out on the track giving him one of these deals and threw his glove at him, and he's flipping out. But then in that race, I got by Jerry Radetsky for 3rd, and I think there was a yellow then right after that with 2 to go, and Pat Dorr was leading. Rick Eggersdorf was 2nd. I was 3rd. Eggersdorf's charging the high side like he always did at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Pat Dorr was running the bottom, and I was in 3rd and came in. Dorr got the lead coming off of 2, came into 3 and 4. Dorr overshot the bottom, slid up. I got underneath Dorr. Eggersdorf went to the outside. We were 3 wide at the line. I'll post a picture on here so you can see the picture. But we were literally 3 wide at the line, and freaking Eggersdorf beat me by like a nose piece. And it was literally my favorite ever race in a late model, and I got 2nd, started in the 6th row. But to be in a 3-way battle for the lead on Tony Stewart night, packed house with both Rick Eggersdorf and Pat Dorr, that was unbelievably awesome. And actually, that picture, I believe, was in Circle Track or Stock Car Magazine. There was a picture in there and stuff of us 3 wide. I'm not sure if Zimmy maybe took that picture, but a lot of great memories there with Rick Eggersdorf. Now, I got another one here. This guy here, some of these guys, if Fuka was on here, he would know, but it's hockey season, so I get it, all right? So, Kelly Lake, okay, this guy here, he started out in the hobby stocks, mostly was number 71. He won the first 2 ever WISSOTA Superstock National Championships, but the year before that, Bert, he was in a Superstock, but they weren't yet WISSOTA. He was number 17. He went on to win Labor Day shootouts in the Super and in the late model, had a little stint in ASA, and incredible race car driver. His son won a couple late model features in Grand Rapids this year. Pete Wallers, remember that name?
Yes, I do remember that name.
So, Bert, he was number 17 because that year my dad was 71. Pete actually built his car at my dad's house. He worked on it at my dad's house in the other stall, and he's like, well, I'll take 17. Pete had been 71. And then the following year, my dad says, you know what? I'm only racing another year or 2. I know 71's your number, Pete. You take 71 back. My dad switched back to 17. And my dad had been 17 years before. And I believe this to be his favorite 6-cylinder. He was number 17 with John Samuelson, and that was probably the best year he had in the 6-cylinder. So my dad was 17, Pete Wallers, and then there's another guy from Kelly Lake, lives in Hibbing. He is pitted for Provenzino over the years, but Danny Pierce. There's another guy from northern Minnesota. He ran a hobby stock, jumped into a modified, ran a little bit in a super, but he actually won the 2002, kind of an upset. Wasn't expected to win the Labor Day shootout in a modified. So Danny Pierce, a guy that he's still been around racing, but not like he used to. And then we were talking about Lem earlier, one of Lem's favorite drivers of all time. Him and his brother both have Labor Day shootout wins. The 1979, Labor Day shootout. First ever Labor Day shootout, first ever Superstock winner, Gary Grierson. Now there's a guy, them two, Gary Grierson, his brother Bruce, incredible race car drivers back in the day. But Gary, I remember orange number 17, really, really fun to watch, one of the best drivers out there. And then a Hall of Famer over at the Hibbing Raceway, Roger Carlson. Have you heard that name, Bert?
No, I haven't.
I believe he won. I'm not sure if he won down at the state fair, but he's won all over the place back in the day. He flagged, he operated the grader, he was on the board, but Roger Carlson, a big name around Hibbing. And then modified guys. I know you don't know much about modified guys, but he ran some USMTS stuff, and I feel like he was on what was that show called that they had in the USMTS series? They were following some of the mod drivers. Remember that? Corey Drips was a guy they followed. So Dirt Nights, is that what it was?
Dirt Nights, yes.
Dirt Nights. So I go down to the Deer Creek Speedway. This guy's from Bemidji. I'm telling you, Bert, he had super sharp looking race cars for a long time. I mean, chromed out everything, right? And I'm walking through. I was racing down, I believe it must have been like 08-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood, down at Deer Creek at the Fall Jamboree. Races are done. I'm walking through the pits, bonfire, music playing. They're burning couches. I mean, anything that could burn, they're throwing in the fire. None other than Mike Spalding. You remember that name?
The last name sounds familiar.
Yeah, over from Bemidji. No, didn't win a ton in the USMTS. I don't know if he won. I don't know if he has a USMTS win. I'm assuming he does. But from Bemidji, won a bunch of races over there. And then I got a handful more here. So a guy that I used to race against, story I have about him, he ain't going to like this one. I know he listens once in a while. But Stevie Thomas, the T17, not really racing much anymore, from the Menominee area. I think he's from Menominee, but Labor Day Shootout, I was always kind of my bread and butter for super stocks. Like that was the number one thing I was focused on, was winning Labor Day. He just about ended my whole weekend because he spun out in front of me in hot laps. And I missed him, but I'm like, T17, come on, what are you doing, man? He's like, I know. And it used to be a dust bowl. Bert, hot laps used to be so dusty at the Labor Day Shootout that you couldn't even see across the racetrack. It was dumb of me to even be out there. Another guy, his kid actually this year, Caden Blazer, 13 or 14 years old, won a handful of Midwest mod races. Kind of fun to see that up and comer. We've talked about Kennedy Swan, right? Now, this Caden Blazer is kind of races the same tracks that she does. Rice Lake, he does run up at Jim Falls, but his dad, Todd Blazer, he was really good back in the day. Number 17. I remember him from the Cedar Lake Speedway because he had flames on his car at the 100. Kind of a stunt man. I think he's done some monster truck stuff. But Todd Blazer, an old legend from back in the day, late model guy. Pair of wins at Speedweeks. The Mac Daddy.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. It's not that long ago. So Dale, if you're a late model guy, you think 17, Eggersdorf won, Dale McDowell, he's still doing it, of course, but he's another one. So have you heard the name Jamie Lemke?
Yes.
Central Minnesota guy. I think he was from Litchfield, maybe Grove City, somewhere in that area. He ran a modified for a number of years, ran, I think, around Wilmer, Grove Creek. I remember him winning races over at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Hasn't done it for a while, but Jamie Lemke was a 17. We're at Wilmer one night, KRA Speedway, Central Minnesota, in the modified, and him and I swapped sliders probably 5-6 times. It felt like 25 times, but we swapped sliders for the lead, and we come around, no white flag, no nothing, right? And they come around, they throw the checker. I'm like, where the hell was the white? Because I'm thinking in my mind, I just got robbed. I don't know if I would have won. It was a fun race with Lemke. So, Bert, we pull in the pits, and they're like, everybody get to your trailers. And we're like, I'm going to scale? Like, am I missing something here? Like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, get to your trailers, get to your trailers. Tornado just barely missed the racetrack, just north of the track. And that ended the feature prematurely. Had a hell of a race there with Lemke. But I remember they sent us back to the trailer. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, I think I'd be better off sitting in the car with my helmet on, right? I'll just stay in the car. You know, if a tornado's going by, I feel like I'm pretty safe in my race car. But it was a panic-stricken night right there. Jamie Lemke, a good one. We have another guy. We talk about, Jay Schmidt, real estate. We'll talk about him later in the show. His dad, Big Al Schmidt, he sent me a text. He goes, hey, I got one for you. Number 17, Tony Daly. Now, daily, there's multiple dailies out in South Dakota. I think a group of them, I don't know if they're related, sponsor Cole Searing, sponsor a bunch of drivers. I believe his kids raced, but Tony Daly, he ran in the late models over there in South Dakota. And then I'm going to give you one quiz here, and then I got one last one. I want you to name 3 NASCAR-related number 17s.
Matt Kenseth, Darrell Waltrip, and
I'm going to go now.
David Peterson.
Ooh, all right. That's a good one. How about this? Ralph Earnhardt. He had a number 17. I'm like, I was a big Earnhardt guy. Who was your guy growing up NASCAR? I mean, who was your driver?
Rusty Wallace.
Rusty, yeah. So I was a Dale Earnhardt guy. I was kind of thumbing through things. I'm like, Ralph Earnhardt was in a 17. I didn't know that. I don't know if it was a very long period of time, but I got a picture of that up here. And then our sprint car expert, who's kind of been incognito here for a little while, the one and only Keith Erickson. So Keith actually ran not them winged, I guess, go-karts they call them, whatever the winged go-karts. He ran them. He had a pair of them, number 17E, and rumor has it that we might have a Keith Erickson sighting yet this year. Kind of interested to see that. Bert, do you have anything to add there on the number 17s?
I have a few of them. One is Josh Meish. He started in sport mods, and then he raced late models for a couple of years. He was a low buck driver, but he has a late model feature win at Shawna Speedway, and he held off Terry Avalink throughout much of the race. Terry was right on his tail throughout most of the race, but he held him off, which is quite an accomplishment for a young driver. And then another one is Cody Grosskrites. He started racing in the fast track late model division at Shawna Speedway, moved up to the upper late model division. And when he moved up to the late model division, that's when the track in Arcadia was still open. And so several drivers from eastern Wisconsin went and raced there for a special at the end of the year. And Friday night got rained out. Saturday night, they got part of the show in, but it rained throughout the evening. So then it was a Sunday afternoon show. And in hot laps, in the daytime, he flipped his car down the backstretch at Arcadia. So that was like his introduction into late model racing.
Wow. And Arcadia was a fast track. It wasn't as big, of course, as Shawna's half mile, but that was a pretty big racetrack, the old Fox Speedway.
And then my final one is a question for you. See how well you know stuff. The first female to win a World of Outlaws sanctioned race.
Late models?
Yes. At least it's on the back of her hotshot that she's the first female to win a World of Outlaws sanctioned race. I don't believe it's a feature because I checked the all-time feature list and she's not listed. So I'm thinking it's probably a heat race or a consi.
Where's she from?
The Milwaukee area.
Really? She still live over there, or did she move down to Iowa?
No, well, I don't think she's moved to Iowa.
You got me.
Okay. Cindy Peterson.
I don't know that name. Okay.
She started racing at Hales Corners in the 1980s, and then in the mid to late 80s, she raced at Shawna Speedway weekly for several years. And then after that, she switched to asphalt late models, and I believe she has one start in the NASCAR Truck Series.
That's interesting trivia right there, because I had absolutely no clue. That's kind of a fun one right there. So you got a picture of her, of course?
Yeah, I have a couple of hot shots of her.
Awesome. So I tell you what, we had a pile of 17s, right? So it's always kind of fun bringing back that blast to the past, kind of chatting about some of them. What do you say we get into this past week's racing, a little bit of a recap of this last week, brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. You know, business owners, farmers, racers, if you got to pay for your own health care, if you're paying out of pocket, chances are you're probably paying too much. Get a hold of me, shoot me a text, shoot me a message. I'll get you a quote. Just takes a couple minutes. See if we can help you out. See if we can help you save some money and have some more money to put into your race program rather than into the insurance person's pocket. So let's start. Let's start with some late models. They finally closed up the books here on the Florida Georgia Speed Weeks. They had, I guess they had 7 feature races at the Volusia Speedway Park for the late models, because the one night at the Sunshine Nationals, of course, rained out. What stuck out to you from, first of all, from Volusia, from the 7 events down at the Volusia Speedway?
The fact that they had no repeat winners. I mean, they had 7 races and 7 winners, and you know, Ryan Gustin did.
Can you name them? Can you name them?
I can't name all of them. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 of them written down.
All right, who do you got?
Ricky Thornton Jr., Brendan Overton, Ryan Gustin, Chris Madden, Dale McDowell, and Dennis Erb.
And Air Force Ashton Winger won the makeup feature.
Oh, okay.
That is crazy, right? 7 feature winners in 7 races. I don't think anybody could have picked that, because Bishop had 3 alone over at East Bay, but 7 different winners. And I guess if you count the original feature from the Sunshine Nationals, McDowell won that one. So out of all the feature races at Volusia, Mac Daddy the only one to double up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, and the fact that Ryan Gustin, Ashton Winger, you know, some drivers that you don't necessarily see in victory lane all the time. So, you know, it's good to see them in victory lane. And Devon Moran, you know, didn't get any victories down there, but he still had some really good finishes.
Let's talk a little bit about Devin Moran, because he won the Big Gator, right? That the 6 nights at the last swing at Volusia, those 6 nights they had their own mini point series. The first 2 nights were dirt car. The next 4 nights were World of Outlaws, but they mixed all 6 together. And Moran won the Big Gator by 1 point, 1 over Chris Madden. So Moran, who'd been super aggressive most of the time, really the track was good except for really the last 2 nights. The last night was just horrible. It just locked down, and I think everybody down there was like, let's just get this stupid thing done and get out of here. We've had enough. But it was locked down. And do you think if he was ahead by more, that he might have tried to get a little bit more aggressive to get up into the top 5? Or do you think he was counting cars and saying, no, I can't afford to lose 1 spot or it's over? What do you think?
Well, I mean, if the track was locked down, chances are he was counting cars and kind of knew where he needed to be. And once he was in that spot, just, okay, we'll just ride this out. If anybody's going to pass me, they're going to have to pass me.
So Moran, over all of Speed Weeks down there, I mean, unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. Just looking at a couple stats here, Bert, from all of Speed Weeks. Bishop had the most wins. He had 4. Moran and Overton each had 3 wins in Speed Weeks. And I'm talking everything from East Bay to Alltech to, you know, Golden Isles and everything in between. But when you look at the top money earners, Devin Moran, $92,200. Second was Bishop at $71,000, and third was Overton at $56,000. So Moran, not double, but almost doubled what Overton had down there. I mean, he was unbelievably consistent. 7 second-place finishes. The question I have, so big news out of the Moran camp, who the beginning of the year, probably the top driver as far as consistency in dirt late model racing. His brother Wiley Moran has decided that he's stepping away. He's still going to have a little bit of a role, going to help him at the shop from time to time, but he's not going to be his right-hand man traveling with him everywhere, okay? Now, I have a little bit to say on that, but as a fan on the outside looking in, what kind of an impact is that going to have on Devin Moran's the remainder of his season?
I mean, it could have a huge impact. I mean, depending on how involved he was in making the decisions as to what to do with the car setup wise. I mean, if he had major input and made a lot of the decisions, it could have a huge impact because you won't have him to rely on.
You know, and there's that chemistry, right? I mean, I won multiple national championships in a Wasota Superstock, which isn't the same page as a World of Outlaw Lucas Oil late model, okay? But regionally, it was, you know, to me at the time was a big deal. But I had a right-hand man, right? You know, my buddy Changa, Jim, he was there with me through all of my championship years. And being able to come in and we'd argue, right? Because I'd be like, I feel the car's doing this. He's like, you're an idiot. It's not doing that. Car's doing this. I'm like, you know what you're talking about. I'm in it. He's like, watch the tape. I'm like, all right, fair enough. You're right. You know, and we had a lot of that. But, you know, given the stick signals and really being able to make last minute decisions, somebody I could count on if I needed something changed right away, you know, before going out for the feature and last minute type stuff, you know, that chemistry was huge. And then when he kind of stepped away, I had some good pit guys along the way, but it was just different because the one guy I had that was kind of, you know, the main pit guy I had was gone. And, you know, them two, I'm guessing, have been together forever because they're brothers, you know, of course, Donnie Moran, then you got the kids. I'm going to be really interested to see, Bert, what that does moving forward because I don't think people understand how big of a deal that really is. So
I agree.
I got a question for you. Who looked the best? So there's some young guys down there. And I mean, when we're talking young guys, I mean, we could be talking Moran, right? We could be talking Hudson O'Neill struggled. He did not look good at Speedway. Awfully disappointing. But as far as some of the newer faces that come in, somebody that wasn't already a winning name, who stuck out to you down at Speed Weeks as far as young guns?
Well, the name I heard the most was Kyle Hammer. That he seems to be getting a lot of buzz right now for the driver that could do the best this season. Young rookie driver.
That's why I had to. He qualifies well. Like he started in the front couple rows almost every night at Volusia. Like he qualifies really good, right? And we know how big of a deal that is in dirt late model racing because if you don't qualify good and you're going to start fourth, fifth row in that field of cars, you might as well go home because you ain't making the show, right? I mean, there's provisionals, but he qualified really well, raced his way in, had to use some provisionals as well, and led the lion's share. I don't know if it was the second to last night or third to last night, but one of those shows, he led the majority of the race. And there was a miscommunication, right? We're talking about the chemistry between Devin and Wiley. Evidently, Dad was giving him signals and saying, you know, hey, I want you to do this. He misread the signals. He changed his line. He went straight backwards. Ended up getting spun out somehow. That did not go well, right? So the chemistry wasn't there, inexperience. But he did he capped it off with a top 5. He got 5th on the final night down there. Actually, I think he started 4th, 5th row, so he passed a couple cars to get up into 5th. So pretty interested to see. He's going to follow the World of Outlaws series. Great way to cap it off for Kyle Hammer. Anything else as far as the late models go that stuck out to you at the Florida Georgia Speed Weeks down there?
I mean, I was surprised after his showing the previous week. I was surprised that Bishop didn't get into victory lane. Yeah,
he kind of faded a little bit. He did not look as good at Volusia. He looked really good at East Bay, and then just Volusia was not very good to him. Let's switch it over to mods because this kind of came up last minute. I was looking at Facebook and I was looking through, just scrolling the page, right? And all of a sudden a modified pops up, right? Lethal modified. $72,000. They ain't been raced yet. And that's what it costs. It's not like he's posting a bad price or whatever. That's what it costs. $72,000, turnkey, take it home, go race it. For a modified, okay? Now, I was looking at that, and I'm thinking in my mind, 72. No wonder there's 6 cars at every track, right? For modifieds, like who the hell can do that? But then I got to thinking, I was looking back and I'm thinking, Okay, Volusia paid 10 grand, 12 grand to win, somewhere in that neighborhood. They paid less, of course, for the dirt car nights. And then I looked at the mods. Did you see what they paid to win for the modifieds at Volusia?
No, I did not.
Okay, so the final night was the finale for the Big Gator. That one was 5,000 to win. That's a pretty good pay. Okay, the rest of the features, what do you think they paid to win?
2,000.
No.
1,000.
No.
500.
Between some of them paid 600, some of them paid 700 to win. It was like 350 per second. Bert, they had 107 modifieds. Now their week was terrible a couple weeks ago. 107 modifieds. So, okay, racers. Okay, I'm talking to you. I was talking to you. Y'all need to quit being a bunch of dumbasses. Okay, plain and simple, because they're the first ones to cry and whine. I know, because I did it. I'm not calling you out. I did it too. But they cry and whine about the purse. Oh, they ain't paying us enough money. 700 to win, and 107 of you idiots show up to Volusia? Are you out of your mind? Like, why would you do that? That is Mississippi Thunder pays more than that on a regular freaking night. Unbelievable. So I had people going, well, they need to pay more at Volusia.
Why?
Exactly. They already get 107. They don't need to pay anymore. You want them to pay more? Quit going. I asked Brent Larson that very question about the first couple nights of the late models, right? The first 2 nights were dirt car, and then the next 4 were World of Outlaws, and the dirt car pay was terrible. It was like 500 all the way up to like 12. It was terrible, right? As compared to the World of Outlaw pay. I'm like, why on earth do all of you even race that? Why? Like, why? Because you notice some of them didn't, right? Some of them kept the car in the trailer till the World of Outlaw races. Why would they even do that? So racers, if you want to get paid more money, you can't do that. You can't go no different than going to the Wild West shootout with a sport mod, with a B mod and a A mod. They pay nothing. Now, if you're okay with that, that's perfectly fine. But don't complain about the pay at your local track all year long, and then go support that. That just don't fly. You know, you see people pulling in with stacker trailers and $75,000 race cars, and they're mad that they don't pay enough. You just got done buying 2 freaking houses and turned it into a race car. You got to quit worrying about the pay, because obviously racers kind of have some kind of a mental block when it comes to numbers. It just is what it is. So I found that kind of interesting. Another thing that stuck out, so in this whole deal, XR made another announcement. He's been aggressive, right? There's no doubt he has been on the chip. In 2023, Bert, XR is going to bookend Speed Weeks. The week before Speed Weeks, I think right after the Sunshine Nationals, kind of in between there, they're having like a 4 or 5 night swing in Vegas. And then right after Speed Weeks, and I believe that race actually is that weekend's the first weekend, I believe, is right after Vado. I think it's right after that. So I think he's hoping to get cars from Vado to go directly up to Vegas, as I believe. But they're going to bookend it. So on the front side of Speed Weeks and on the back side of Speed Weeks, they're going to have a 4 or 5 night swing on either end of that. What is your thoughts on that?
I mean, it all sounds great. All the, more racing, but I don't know if drivers can afford to race that. I mean, they're going to be picking and choosing where they're racing, when they're racing. So people who go to Speed Weeks expecting to see, these drivers may not see these drivers, because maybe they're going to, and it's just a lot. They already complain that there's no off season. And now, I mean, there really is no off season.
No, there's not, because there's racing all the way through December. You got a couple weeks off in there, but man, I tell you what, most people need that little bit of a regroup time. I don't know. I'm interested. I don't know how it's going to work out. I mean, it's not directly right on top of anything, I don't think. But I watched the ride home during Speed Weeks, and I enjoyed it. I do. You get Rigsby and Ben Shelton and D Suave and them guys just kind of driving home after the races. And the final one, if you haven't watched this, go to Dirt on Dirt on Facebook and watch the final ride home, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So Rigsby commented on there about, he goes, I'm an institution guy. I believe anything that we're doing, we want to complement the World of Outlaws and Lucas Oil. And he went and he started throwing roundhouses saying, we're not like some people, scheduling on top of other races. We're scheduling to complement them. Did you take that maybe as shots fired at XR?
Yeah, that it could be interpreted that way. And I'm not sure if you caught his other comments. He made the comment that he believes the World of Outlaws and Lucas still have some ammunition in their arsenal. So, I took that as a direct thing towards XR also.
Yeah, like they're keeping it close. It sounds like it's going to be coming out in the next week or two here, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. And let's be honest. So, part of me is like, what is this guy freaking doing? Right? Like we don't need more. You're scheduling on top of this stuff. Like, what is he doing? Right? But then the other side of me is like, maybe shit needs to be shaken up. Maybe that needs to happen. It's not always bad to kind of rock the boat a little bit. I kind of like that a little bit. I might have done that a time or two myself. So there's kind of both sides to this. I mean, there's respecting the institutions that are there. There's rocking the boat, implementing change, bringing more money to the table, forcing the hands of other series to put more money at things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it works out, but there's no shortage of big paying shows. I can tell you that much.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, my fear is I just don't think financially all these big shows is sustainable for long term.
Right. You look at it, right? I mean, Mississippi Thunder, did you see that they bounced theirs up?
Yeah.
It's going to be $50,000 to win. They're looking at it, and I believe they're against somebody that weekend. I don't remember. Batesville maybe has a big show. Somebody else has a big show that weekend. I'm not sure who. But the fact is, you start looking at this, and the ones that are going to struggle are the areas that don't have a big following that are paying that regular 10,000 to win show, right? 10,000 to win used to be a big deal. Now you look at people's schedules out there, like Bobby Pierce put his schedule out, Ricky Weiss put his schedule out, Fergie put his schedule out, and you look at the paydays on these schedules, and like the lowest paydays 10 grand. They're all 15, 20, 25, 50, 75, 100. Now they're going, I'm going to freaking unload my car for 10 grand to win. Why would I do that? And they've kind of forced the hands. And the smaller tracks, I think what's going to happen here, Bert, is the smaller tracks, the club run type tracks, the ones that don't have a lot of backing, they just aren't going to be able to do it. It's just not going to be an option. Which, in all honesty, is maybe a little bit of a blessing, because some of these smaller tracks, instead of looking that way at a big home run, maybe they'll decide, hey, we got to put more focus. We have a local racing deal. Let's focus on that weekly program, grassroots type stuff. The other tracks can have the big races. And I get it. I mean, I was involved with Hibbing, Grand Rapids. We like to have some of the big shows too, but financially, it just don't make sense to do that anymore. So it's going to be interesting. We have a little bit of a break here with late model racing, but we're going to see the gloves come off here in the not so distant future. Barry Braun, I tell you what, he's not letting up anytime soon. We'll see what happens between XR, Castro Flow Racing Night in America, Lucas Oil, World of Outlaws, non-sanctioned stuff. Then you got stuff like the Mars Series, the Hell Tour, all that. Oh man, if I was Tony Izzo, I think I'd take the Hell Tour or the Mars Series and be like, you know what, we're out. we're just like we don't need to get involved with that. There's too much. I mean, do you think the Mars Series is something that could probably just go away?
Well, I mean, I think he definitely needs to gear it towards. I mean, he needs to find a niche for it because he can't compete with the big series. I mean, actually, Seymour or Outagamie Speedway in Seymour, Wisconsin, in eastern Wisconsin, they have a Mars race on their schedule. So I'm curious because they had World of Outlaws the last 2 years, but they don't have a World of Outlaw race. They have a Mars race instead this year. You know, I'm not sure how many people are going to travel up to Seymour to race in it, or if it's just going to be the local Dirt King drivers racing against each other.
I can see maybe that Jamie Zidar making the trip. I don't know. I think he's from that area somewhere anyway. Northern Illinois, maybe. You might see a few of them, maybe Spatola, some of them type of guys that run a little bit of the Hell Tour type stuff. Maybe they'll make the trip. It'll be interesting. Time will tell. But let's get into Bert. You know, any closing thoughts on Speed Weeks, anything like that before we jump on over?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
So we've had a little bit of racing in the books, okay? So think back from all the way from Vado through Speed Weeks. Let's talk a little bit about who's hot and who's not. Brought to you by Blue Line Brews. And this time of year, it is freaking cold in northern Minnesota, right? Get yourself a cup of coffee. If you want coffee, go to bluelinebrews.com because they support us, but they also, more importantly, support the people that support us, right? So a certain amount of proceeds from that go to the families of injured and fallen officers. You know, a great cause, right? They got a great coffee. They got multiple times. They have their K-Cups out there. Get a hold of them, bluelinebrews.com. Order yourself some nice hot Java to get through these winter days and keep yourself up on top, revving the chip where you need to be. So, Bert, who do you got? Who's hot?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at Speed Weeks overall, I would say Devin Moran, Brandon Shepard, and then I'm going to go with Dennis Erb also because he actually has 2 wins already on the year.
Bert, are you reading my notes? I need to look over my shoulder here. What the hell's going on here? Okay. I mean, yeah, there hasn't been a lot of racing, so it's not going to be a big influx. But that's who I had on my list. First of all, I had Dennis Erb Jr. Okay, the obvious one's Devin Martin, hottest dirt late model driver in America, $92,000 in earnings. That's $21,000 more than Brandon Shepard had, who was in second, and almost double up on third. 7 second place finishes for him down there. What did he have? 3 wins, I believe, for Moran. Did he have 3 wins? Is that what he had? I think he had 3 wins. Yeah.
He had like 18 second place finishes.
Yeah. 7 second place finishes, and he won the Big Gator. But Dennis Erb Jr. is a guy that might have been his best Speed Weeks that he's had. A pair of wins down there, which was impressive. But I was looking at his results, and not a lot of podiums. He wasn't like the guy that was battling for the win every night, but big car counts down there, and he was around that 7th to 12th every night. Super consistent with a stout field of cars down there. I'm not saying he has no budget because they got some money behind them, but you know, the one-man band, him and Heather, they put together a great Speed Weeks. Maybe that could carry some momentum. And who do you have as far as who's not?
I only wrote one driver down. After a great Wild West shootout, Mike Marlar just had a horrific Speed Weeks. I mean, you never even really heard his name mentioned at all.
Yeah, he struggled. He absolutely struggled. So you know who I have, Bert? Somebody that had a change of scenery last year, jumped in Boom Briggs's car in Vegas, and he has been terrible. Josh Richards. He has been horrible. In fact, he was so bad he didn't even freaking race half the shows down there. They just kept in the trailer, burnt up a hauler, right? So they had that problem, or not a hauler, but their camper. They got out of that. But in 14 races, 0 top 5s and only 3 of them in the top 10. And he had 3 nights where he didn't even qualify to make the feature, right? So, I mean, Josh Richards looked terrible, but there's one other guy that looked really, really bad at Volusia, Turbo. I think he had 3 nights where he didn't make the show at Volusia. He didn't race the first night. I think he ran the second night, but he was absolute like garbage down there. So I'm telling you, the track I thought was pretty good. The last couple nights not so good, but it was pretty racy other than that. But Josh Richards and Turbo, neither one of them looked good. But Josh Richards and Boom Briggs, I'm telling you, I don't know what the deal is. I mean, they're not even remotely competitive. They're not even. I mean, it's like they're playing checkers and everyone else is playing chess. Is there any hope for either one of those two? And I'm not going to talk about Boom. Nothing against Boom, but he's not. I wouldn't consider him an upper echelon.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, Boom has never really been that great to begin with.
So we'll take Boom. We'll take Boom on, right? Boom likes to have fun, and he cracks off a good run every now and then.
Right? I mean, right. And I give him credit for following a tour and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. But Josh Richards, he's a former champ. This guy here, he's a winner. This guy knows how to race. He's done it at the highest level, right? I mean, he has shown that he can be one of the best dirt late model drivers in America. I'm going to give you an over and under. 3 feature wins in 2022.
I'll say over.
Wow.
Just because of the fact that I don't think there's going to be. It's not going to be a stellar group of drivers that follow the Outlaw Tour.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Has Madden decided? Has he made the decision if he's following it, or
he has? Not that I'm aware of. I believe he said he was going to make that decision in the next week or so.
Okay. So, I mean, let's assume he does. Madden, you got, I heard Clanton's not. I heard he's going Lucas. I heard at the last night that he made the decision he's out of World of Outlaws going Lucas. I don't know if that's true, but that's the way it's kind of looking.
So, I mean, you'd have Bishop, Herb. I mean, Dennis Herb.
Maybe Madden, right? Gustin. Tyler Bruning. Tyler Bruning had a pretty good speed weeks. He looked like he had some signs of life. He looked pretty competitive. It'll be interesting to see. Josh Richards is a guy that I expect to win. I'm not convinced. So Bert says over on 3. I'd like to see it. It'd be good for the sport. It really would. I'm going to go under. I just am.
Well, when I was looking at the all-time feature win list for the World of Outlaws, because I was trying to find Sidney Peterson's name on there to see if it was feature or just the heat race. I'm not sure I'm not sure if the win list is up to date, but the list that is on the World of Outlaw website right now, Bishop is 1 victory behind Josh Richards for all-time feature win in World of Outlaws.
Yeah, I think that's going to change. I see Bishop being the number 1 by the end of the year for sure. Josh Richards, they need some signs of life. I think they needed this break. They're probably going to take a few weeks off, regroup, but they need to figure some stuff out because they're just not showing anything. So let's talk about our sure bet. Okay, so our sure bet of the week brought to you by J. Schmidt Real Estate, Watertown, South Dakota. If you're in South Dakota, you need real estate transactions for land, for commercial, for residential, for racers, by racers, over 20 years in business. I mean, the guy knows business, but also it's a racing family. And if you're watching this show, you're a racing fan, get a hold of J. Schmidt Real Estate. He's our lock of the week. So, Bert, other than J. Schmidt, who do you have for your lock of the week?
My lock of the week is that Rain is going to win this weekend.
Well, they already knocked down the World of Outlaw sprint car races. Sorry, Keith, but the World of Outlaw sprints are out. So with that said, we have some racing down in Georgia, the Extreme Series. I'm going to go with Ross Bales is going to get a pair of wins down there at those Extreme dirt car races. I believe those are on Are they on Flow or Dirt Vision? I'm not even positive.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, just go to Extreme Dirt Car Late Models, I believe, online. You'll be able to figure out what they're on. Not a lot of racing action, but there is a pair of $5,000 to win shows at Livonia, Georgia.
But
week, Ross Bales.
I do want to make a comment about my rain comment, though. With the number of high-paying shows that are scheduled for this summer, I'm predicting that we're going to see more of this where they cancel a race like 4 days before it's scheduled to take place, just because of the financial hit they would take if everybody shows up and then it gets rained out, or
there's a little bit more to that story, Bert. There's a little bit more. So I before Gateway, I stopped and I visited with Brent Larson over at his shop, right? And remember last year, Lucas did that a bunch. They canceled 3 days early, but the World of Outlaws never did. They always canceled the day of, right? And the reason is how the tow money worked. If you're a tour driver, you're guaranteed X amount of money for showing up. Okay, so if the race goes on, whatever the number is, they're guaranteed that tow money above and beyond their purse. Okay, now with the World of Outlaws, you had to actually sell some tickets. You had to actually, if they didn't sell any tickets, right, the drivers got zero. So if they didn't open up, if it rained out on race day or whatever, done. Lucas Oil, if they sold at least one ticket on race day, okay, whether it canceled or not, that promoter had to give the tour drivers 50% of their tow money. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because let's face it, our buddy Joe has done a number on fuel prices, okay? And it's not going down, it's going up, okay? So that tow money is a big deal. I mean, you take these lower budget teams like Brent Larson, they rely on that, right, in order to keep them going. They need that money. They need that, right? So if you drive to a track and it looks like crappy weather and they probably knew they weren't going to get it in, and then they cancel at the last minute, they still had to pay to get there. And on top of that, miss where they could have possibly went to a different race. With Lucas Oil, they cancel ahead of time, and that saves the driver money, that saves the track money. I think the World of Outlaw series adopted that for this year. I'm not positive on that, but I know that's a thing the drivers were talking about, like that's got to change. I believe it did. And that was because the World of Outlaw drivers banded together, and they presented that to the World Racing Group, said, look, here's a couple changes we want to have made. And they stuck behind it, and they really didn't have a choice. So I think you're exactly right. You're definitely going to see more races cancel in a few days ahead of time than we have in the past. I think that's going to become a norm. So, Bert, let's get to the last lap. Brought to you by Zuli's Race Engines. Of course, multiple wins already on the year for Zuli's Race Engines and Street Stocks and in sport mods, Soda B mods, whatever you want to call it, right? If this is the time of year, I mean, it's February. We're getting close. Get your butt over to Frank. Get your engines refreshed. Get your new ones ordered. He can still get you in, but you need to get there. If you want to win races, a good start is having a good power plant under your hood. Get a hold of Frank at Zuli's Race Engines. So, down in Arizona this last weekend, Bert, probably one of the smartest guys up here because he's in the warm weather and we are not. But Don Shaw been running some late model races. They have their own series down there in Arizona, doubled up on the weekend, a pair of wins again for Don Shaw. I think he must have 5-6 wins down there in Arizona. And some people say, well, yeah, he's in Arizona. He's not in Florida. It's nicer in Arizona than Florida, right? He's not a World of Outlaw or Lucas Oil team. He's a Wasota guy racing, having fun down there. So tip of the cap, congratulations on a pair of wins, Don Shaw. So did you see, Bert, what the USMTS series has on store for 2022?
Yeah, they're going to pay $100,000 to the champion.
Unbelievable. So they're going to honor Leon Ramirez, and they're going to have a Leon Ramirez trophy and $100,000 to the winner of the 2022 USMTS Modified Series. Unbelievable. So the question I have is this: with that kind of money on the line, you look at some. Let's just talk some Wasota guys. Maybe you have IMCA guys too over there, but you take some of the guys over in your neck of the woods. You take some Wasota guys. I'm thinking right off the top of my hand, Johnny Broking. I'm thinking Shane Sabraski. Those kind of guys, right? The people that have the means to go do something like this. Are they almost out? You got to remember, all their shows pay a minimum of 5,000 to win. Okay, it's 5 or 10 grand to win all the USMTS shows, and it's 100 grand to win the points. I don't know what the rest of the breakdown is. I don't even know if they announced that yet, but it's pretty solid. It's worth your time, and it's like 30 some shows. What are some of these guys absolutely outside of their mind, not following this series in 2022?
It's tough for a regional racer to win that type of a championship. Jesse Glenn's tried to chase it last year, and he was off the tour almost as soon as he got on the tour.
There was a little bit more to that story with Glenn's, though. I heard that he had a worn out engine. Even Landon Atkinson I think he ran a Wasota motor for the majority of the season. So they were kind of bringing a knife to a gunfight type of deal, so to speak, right? When Atkinson finally, I think he had an actual USMTS motor in when they came to Ogilvy, I think. Not 100% sure on that, but he ran well. Alex Williamson won Mod Wars. Jody Belfi was up in the top 3. There's another guy, Kevin Adams, who's kind of on his downturn as far as racing, more focused on his kid and just running here and there with his cars. I tell you what, I'll stack our guys, our Wasota guys, up against the USMTS guys, and that's no disrespect to Rodney Sanders, Ramirez, Tanner Mullins, right? Jake O'Neill, who I don't know if he's going to run that or not. I think he's going to focus. He struggled in that late model, by the way. He did not look good. He really struggled in that late model. But I'll take our top guys against their top guys. Maybe it takes a little bit to get used to that tire package. Maybe they ain't going to win right away. Ebert, arguably one of the best Wasota modified drivers out there. I don't think he had a USMTS win, but he ran well. But how do you get better? You want to get better if you have the financial means to do it, right? I can see somebody that doesn't have a big budget not following that because it takes some money to do that.
Yeah, if you have the financial means and you're able to, if you have the time to be able to travel to all the races, it depends on what kind of job you have and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's variables there for sure. I can see Broking and Sabraski having the ability to do that. The means, I don't think either one of them are, but I would like to see more of our guys take a shot at it for sure. So with that said, Daytona Speed Weeks this past weekend, of course, they had the duels, and then they had the truck race and the Xfinity race, and then of course the Daytona 500. Austin Cindric, your Daytona 500 winner. Interesting, but what stuck out to you from Daytona Speed Weeks?
What stuck out to me is that I'm glad that I'm a dirt racing fan. Growing up, I love NASCAR. I watched it whenever I could. The Daytona 500 Sunday was like a holiday for me. And it still is. The Daytona 500 is the one race that I watch, that I make sure that I watch every year. But it just doesn't seem to have the same spice that it used to have. And, it's plate racing. It's the big wreck. And I've talked about this on the show before. I hate blocking. And that's all they do at the end of the race, and all that does is cause a big wreck. Cindric won, but Blaney was alongside of him, and he tried to block him and pushed him into the wall. And Blaney was my driver in the pool, and I would have won $150 if he would have won the race.
That is bullshit. So, let's talk about this, right? So, 4 of the 5 races I mentioned. So the second duel, the truck race, the ARCA race, or not the ARCA race, the truck race, the Xfinity race, and the Cup race, every one of them ended with a big crash. All of them, right? I mean, that's it's ridiculous. I mean, I get it because that's when they actually finally start racing, but I'm a fan of the restrictor plate because it keeps them together and you really don't know who's going to win till the end. But I'm really not a fan of like destroying a whole bunch of cars and then like whoever's left wins. I mean, not that he cares and not that he watches the show, but I got to give a donkey award to Joey Logano. What the hell was he thinking in the second duel? Okay, like everybody's in the show, right? Everybody's in the show. They got 35 charter drivers, 42 tried to qualify for the 500. Only 2 drivers are not in the show. He's locked in, he's leading, and he throws a huge block, right, on the last lap of the second duel, which meant nothing. It meant nothing. If he falls back to third, oh well, you got third. You start a couple rows back, the plate race, you're in the hunt, who cares? And he threw a block, destroys a race car out of pure stupidity. I understand he got his butt chewed by his car owner or crew chief or all of the above. And I think they only brought like one spare for the whole group to the track, and he destroyed one in that race. I mean, that kind of stuff there. So that leads me to this, okay? Let's talk NASCAR. Remember, it used to be 43 cars started the Daytona 500. 42 is all that tried to qualify. First of all, I mean, how stupid is it that they don't just say 42 cars are here, just put them all in? I mean, what's the point of sending 2 cars home when it's 40? Does that make any sense?
Well, they had to try to create some excitement for the dual races, because for the telecast, like, oh, this guy's racing against this guy. And no, I mean, I agree. I mean, when they ran the duels in the afternoon, I would actually take vacation time off from work so I could watch the duels. Well, now they're on during the evening, so I don't need to, but I had them on, but I'm doing other things around the house because it's just like, there's just not a lot of excitement.
There's not. So I'm going to ask you this question. I get it. I get why they have 35 chartered drivers automatically locked in. I get it. I understand why. It's money. It's the corporate sponsors. I get it. Okay, I get it. But first of all, there ain't even enough freaking cars half the time to have a full field, right? They're calling drivers, teams, and begging them to come to some of these shows just to fill the show, and they got start and park teams that don't even run all the laps. Okay, so there is that. But the charter driver deal, right? Does that, if you're somebody down in the Charlotte area that says, you know what, I think I want to field a car for the Daytona 500. Okay, 35 cars are locked in. You're literally racing for a total of 5 spots, and I think a couple of them were locked in on speed. So is there even a point? Why even try now? Because there's so few spots to even try to get in. I'd like to see them just go back to the old way. Like, there ain't no, you earn your way into the 500, right? And I've saw people talk about it, the race that they had over at the Coliseum in Vegas. And I thought overall, I loved the format. I like the heats. I like the B mains. I like that format. I don't know that works on a 2.5 mile Daytona.
Right.
I don't know that, right? Probably not. Okay. But why not? You know what? Why not have a different type of qualifying format to get in, make it more interesting? You know, I think they learned something there. The one thing that I'd like to see is get rid of this charter deal. And I get why they do it, but most of them guys are going to make the show anyway. I mean, come on, right?
Well, I mean, if they didn't before they had the charter deal, I mean, the top drivers were still guaranteed because they had the provisionals that they now they don't have provisionals because the charter teams are guaranteed to start the race. Right. But like for qualifying, when they had the time trials, I started watching. I wasn't exactly sure what the format was, and then I heard them say that the top 10 then advance on. So I thought they were going to do it like short track, where the top 10 in qualifying actually race a race to have like a dash to determine their starting spots. No, the top 10 do another round of time trials. It's just like, who wants to watch that?
Exactly. So the one thing I will say though is I don't know that I've seen a crowd like that at the Daytona 500 in a while. That was unbelievable. The amount of people that were there, out on the track beforehand, pre-race stuff, and I mean a capacity crowd, electricity in the air at the greatest race there is in NASCAR, the Daytona 500. So that shows you right there that even though we're dirt guys, it's not our cup of tea. It's still popular enough to fill the place.
Oh yeah.
And I get it. People say, hey, they took seats out, and they did for sure a couple of years back. But there was still a shit ton of people there. I heard numbers as high as 150,000 between the infield and all that. I don't know that to be 100% true, but there was over 100,000, and there's not over 100,000 at any dirt race ever, right? So that shows you right there that it's still very, very popular regardless, and they filled the place. So congratulations to them on that. So our current standings, Jeff is at 23, Puka's at 21, and I'm at 18. All right. Bert's at 28. I kind of feel like you got pencil whipped here, which I'm okay with, by the way, because I'm closer to you. You're 10 ahead of me. Like, I'm really sucking it up here. But this weekend, we don't really have – we were going to pick the World of Outlaws, right? We were going to pick the World of Outlaw sprint cars, but Mother Nature already won those. In fact, I don't know if you saw my recent picks. I did pick Mother Nature for both, so I should get 4 points for that. Jeff, take note. But upcoming this week, if you're a late model fan, Extreme Dirt Late Model Series action, doubleheader at Livonia Speedway in Georgia. My pick, like I talked about, lock of the week, Ross Bale's going to win both nights. I got a question for you, though, Bert. Are we going to see, your Chris Madden type, your Overton type, are we going to see them guys make the trip over there for a pair of $5,000 to win shows? Or do you think that they're like, man, it is nice to have a week or two off to regroup and kind of catch our second breath again? Do you, number one, over and under, 3 series type upper echelon top tier drivers that aren't following the series at Livonia this weekend?
I'm going to take the under.
I like to be opposite. I'm taking even. I'm going to go with 3. I don't know who they're going to be, but I'm going to say that we're going to see 3 guys that don't normally follow the series. I hope so, because it's just more racing, more money, and a regional deal for them guys. But, just one thing I want to close on, Bert. So we talked a little bit about $72,000 modified, right? That's a real number. That's what they're paying. You want the best of everything? It's going to cost about that much. I heard rumors that there's guys jumping into a late model, right, that are paying that by the time it's all said and done, turnkey race ready, are going to have over $100,000, nearing $120,000 into a late model to race Wissota regional late model racing. It's out of hand. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. Drivers, you can't complain about the purse. Oh, it should be 1,000 instead of 700. If you're spending $100,000 on a late model, like, you just need to stop talking. Like, seriously, because you're not at that point. Money just does not matter. You're not worried about the extra $100 or $200. Clearly, you're just not. Okay. I just want to say this for all the racers out there listening: race a class that you can enjoy and afford to race. Kenny Wallace said this a couple years back on one of his Facebook Lives. When should a person move up? You don't have to ever feel obligated to move up. If you're in a class that you enjoy, and if you're not going broke, you're paying your bills, you enjoy it, race that class, right? We have too many people that they jump up into another class and 2 years later they're done because they are flat out of money. Race a class that you can afford. If somebody's saying, "Oh, you've been in that class too long," say, "Great, buy me a car. I'll run a late model. You fund it. I'll drive it. No big deal. Do that." Okay. But if you're a pure stock guy, if you're a street stock guy, if you're a super stock, mod, sport mod, IMCA, Wissota, I don't care, right? If you're in a class and people are giving you shit because they think you should be moving up, tell them to start paying your bills. If they're not paying your bills, their opinion don't matter. If you're enjoying what you do and you can afford it, stay there. I'm telling you right now, I've seen a lot of racing, Bert, street stocks, right? Some of the best racing, and I raved about this all year last year, some of the best racing regionally that I saw was with Soda Streets and IMCA stockers. Unbelievable. In fact, I would argue that the majority of the time, those two features are better than the Wasoda late model features. They just are, right? So it's all about going out, having a good time, being competitive, not going broke. You don't have to move up. You look at these prices of the 72,000. Bert, I know a ton of people, a ton, that don't even make 72 grand in a year gross, right? Let alone, they don't make that. And they're going to pay that much for a race car. It don't even make sense. Don't do that. Race something you can afford. We need more cars. We need more drivers. We can't have people going broke, getting divorces, losing their homes because they're spending every dollar they had in a class that they probably don't belong in financially. So that's me on my soapbox. Bert, any closing thoughts on episode 117?
No, just it's hard to believe next week is March already. So we're getting closer to racing in our area. Still about a month, a little over a month away, month and a half away.
It is next week already. I had to look at that. I'm like, are we already to the end of February? And we are. It feels like it's just snapped away just like that. It's been crazy. So we got there's races coming up here early part of March, fairly regional, right? And we'll talk more about that in the shows to come. So again, always fun chatting racing. We could sit and talk for another 3-4 hours, but we're probably not going to do that here tonight. So you'll have to come back and join us next week. But again, I'm Ryan. That is Bert, and thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.